Hello, and welcome to another edition of Making Sense with Dr. Stacy. For those who don't know me, I am Dr. Stacy Betancourt, PhD in social human behaviors, and I am continuing in my series on divorce. And today we look at the emotions associated with divorce, particularly anger. So let's get right to it. Divorce is not easy. I mean, sure, you hear about those divorces where everything goes as planned, everything's negotiated, it goes without a hitch, and you're done. Those are a rarity. Those are an absolute rarity. The idea of divorce, it is every single emotion that is possible to have. There's anger, there's sadness, there's sorrow, there's even feelings of being ashamed. There's feelings of heartbreak, heartache, you name it, it's all there. Loss. So, looking at anger, anger is normal. Depending on which side of this divorce you're on, whether it is something that you wanted or you didn't want, there's so many reasons behind the emotions. Anger is, as we know, anger in itself is a very disruptive emotion. It is probably the least helpful emotion in any situation. But in a divorce, it is extremely difficult to work with. And I'm a little more serious on this one because I have had many clients who have come to me and they are so angry. They are so angry. And they're just completely either blindsided, anger through blindsiding, anger through not being able to talk to their soon to be former spouse, anger about the loss or the feelings of not getting their fair share. There's the feelings of being prohibited from more time with your child. There are so many reasons for the anger. And every feeling is valid. Every catalyst in this is very valid. And I don't want to give the impression that if you're angry, you're doing it wrong, because there is no right way to do this. Divorce is, for the most part, a very difficult, deep-seated loss that can manifest in many different ways, right? So for some people, it's crying. For some people, it's avoidance. It's lashing out, it's doing all these different things to you. So, what I want you to do, and this is the hardest thing to do, is in the heart of it, even though you may be dealing with a very difficult situation, your feelings of anger, this is, again, a very valid feeling. Please don't think otherwise. But you've got to begin to train yourself to look at it as, is this going to help? How is the anger going to serve me? Because truthfully, the only person that's going to suffer from this is you. And that's hard because you're already suffering. That's why you're angry and you're frustrated, and all these feelings are coming out. And trying to figure out what to do with them can be a very traumatic situation. So, what I'm asking you to do is, in the heart of your anger, be aware of it and take the steps, talk with a professional to bring your anger down, learn how to process it. If you are someone who doesn't want to seek a professional assistance, that's respectable. However, you have to do something for yourself before you get there. And part of that, I want to kind of liken back to my little portions on communication. Sometimes anger comes from not being heard. Sometimes the anger and frustration comes from even you not being open and expressing yourself in the moment. And that can be hard, because if you are holding back emotions, those emotions don't go away. They're just going to continue to compound, and they're going to continue to grow, and they're going to continue to manifest themselves in ways that sooner or later you're going to blow. You're just going to lose it. So how do you prevent that from happening? Because when you do that, when you completely lose control, it creates a bigger problem. And I'm sure you realize what that can do. So it's not going to help your situation. And some of us hide our emotions of fear and channel them as anger, rather than using your words and expressing yourself early enough and often enough to get those feelings out, so that you don't have an explosion of emotions. And one of those ways is when you have to meet with your spouse, when you have to meet in mediation, if you have to meet with the attorneys, you want to have your list. And this kind of goes back to that idea that I've been talking about, is create your list of non-negotiables. Okay. I have talked to former divorce individuals who come to me for aftercare, and they are at such a loss because they don't feel like they were best represented. They did not get what they wanted. They didn't realize what it was going to look like. And that's part of the thing that I want you to begin thinking about is, what are you seeking in this divorce? Whether it was your choice or not, the bottom line is you are in a divorce. So it is very important to sit down with yourself in a quiet moment and either journal it out, and I've talked to you about journals before, write it down, pen and paper, whatever it is, make it one pad, one pen, one whatever, stick to that. Make yourself a list and write those items down. What is it that you want? Do you want to make sure, because especially if there's children involved, you have, obviously both you and your former spouse want equal representation with their child, and that's understandable. But how are you going to manage that so that it is the least invasive to the child? And that's really hard, because even though in your mind and in your heart you are doing the best for your child, and you have every right to do that, but you also have to look at the child in them and see what's going to be the best for them. Having a child arrangement where the child is with you one week and the other parent the next week, and you're switching off, and that's great while they're little, but what if one of you have to move? What if the child begins to resent the two different households? What are you going to do? How are you going to heal that? How are you going to work that through as the child matures? Those are things that you have to think of right now. Even if your child is a toddler, you need to think about how it's going to affect them in later life. Sooner or later, you or your former spouse is going to meet someone else. They might get married. That spouse may need to move to another state. How is that going to affect you? I'm not saying in this that you need to be strategic in the sense that I'm going to cover every base, because there's no such thing as that. But it's getting your basics covered. It's getting your high emotional items down so that when you are in meeting, when you are in negotiation, when you are working through things with your soon-to-be former spouse, your emotions are under control. Because if you go in and you begin to lose your temper, it's not going to be effective. The whole concept will fall apart. And as more and more emotions kick in, it's going to be even harder. Now, in any one of those situations, if you find yourself reaching a point where you're starting to get angry, you're starting to feel the emotions grow, right? Because we know that when that's happening, we can feel it. Don't be afraid to ask for a break. Don't be afraid to ask for a timeout. If you are working with an attorney or a mediator, you can ask for those timeouts. If you're working with a judge, you can ask for that. You need to be truly your best self through this. Now, for some people, hearing the phrase best self is a complete cliche. What the heck? But in actuality, being your best self is allowing yourself to be open. It's allowing yourself to hear. It's allowing yourself to know where is your threshold as far as what you're willing to negotiate. And I'm not saying this to give you an edge, because in a divorce, let's be very honest, nobody really wins, right? And you've got to keep that in mind. Nobody really wins in a divorce, because a divorce is a permanent change to something you visualize as a marriage. Okay. It's not easy. So keeping those emotions in check is a pivotal point. And the more calm you're able to remain, the better off you are to communicate. I've had clients who get so emotionally connected, and how can you not? But they let those emotions control them to the point that they will not finish a thought process. And if you are in a negotiation and it's not going well, and you reach a point and your habits are to shut down, as in, you know what, whatever they want, I don't care. I don't care. You can't do that. You cannot do that ever. Because at the moment you do that, you are, number one, you lose credibility in that negotiation. You become in a sense, a hostile client, because you're not listening, you're not opening your mind, you're not allowing the natural thought processes, good, bad, or indifferent. You need to verbalize what you're feeling and what you're thinking. And part of that comes from being in control of your emotions. The moment you start to feel angry, the moment you start to feel your voice catch, you have got to stop yourself and you have got to ask for breaks. It is such an important step in being heard, in being listened to, in the other side, listening to your soon-to-be former spouse. It's listening to where you have similarities and where you have differences. And that ability to communicate well is going to serve you both, because especially if there's children involved, the more you've got children, the facet in the face of divorce has to change, because you both have a common interest in that child, right? The children are here. You and your spouse are here. You've got to be able to maintain a relationship so that your children grow up never knowing that there were bad feelings. It just didn't work out. However you both choose to talk about your divorce, that is something also worth talking about with you before the question is asked by your children, because trust me, they will ask. They will have questions. And that's something that you need to be prepared for. So learning to control the emotions, especially the anger, is so important, not only as a good lesson for yourself so that you can best communicate, but also as an example to your children and also the family. There are families that have maintained relationships with formerly divorced other side of the family. And you want to make sure that you maintain those relationships, because the more you're surrounded with love and care, the easier life gets, right? So with this is a short one. I want you to consider it. Remember to take breaks. Remember to take that time out, but remember to finish your thoughts, because you matter. This whole situation is never an easy one. And if you need help, I am here to help you. If not me, please seek out the help of a divorce coach and a divorce recovery coach. This is Dr. Stacey Betancourt. I hope you guys have a great week. Next week, I will be running the Los Angeles Marathon. So I'll probably post on Saturday, because Sunday afterwards, I'm going to be tired. So do something good for yourself this week. Remember to control your emotions. Remember to journal. Use that journal, use that list. If you have questions, comments, if you need anything, I'll put some information in the comments below, and make it a great week. I'll talk to you soon.